G'day, it's Lee Martinuzzi from Gold Coast, Australia, and you're listening to The Solopreneur with Michael O'Neill, because this show rocks.
The Solopreneur Hour podcast. Job security for the unemployable. It's the Solopreneur Hour podcast with Michael O'Neill.
Welcome to the Solopreneur Hour podcast,
where every episode we co-host with the best and brightest solopreneurs in the land. And now your host, Michael O'Neill.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Solopreneur Hour here in your earballs. It's so good to have you here. It's Michael O'Neill. I think this is somewhere in the episode 781 range or something like that, but we've done a bunch together, and thank you for being here. This episode is brought to you by Kartra, K-A-R-T-R-A. It is indeed the greatest all-in-one platform ever. Kartra checkouts, let me just tell you, I'll give you the quick overview of what Kartra is. Kartra is basically the infrastructure of your business, meaning they've got pages, they've got leads. It's a big, giant CRM. They've got funnels and campaigns and mail and memberships and video hosting and help desks and calendars and forms and affiliates and you name it. Kartra is this one-stop shop. So if you have a digital business of any sort and you want to build, an emailing list, and you want to have forms on your website, and you want to have pages that convert, and you want to maybe do like a membership site, and you want to host a couple of videos, it does all of it. And it does all of it in this beautiful, elegant way. It's what I run the Solopreneur Hour on. It's what I run Beginner Audiophile and Wrench and all my businesses. They're all running through Kartra because you can tag and follow a customer completely through their journey. And it's amazing. So you can track them. Even one of my favorite parts about Kartra is that you can post a video on your site. Let's say it's like a little 2-minute promotional video for your membership site or something like that. And within the video, you can tag different lengths, meaning if somebody watches the video for, let's say, 10 seconds and they go in and out, then you can tag them with a certain, whatever tag you want. Let's say they watch it halfway through. Let's say they watch it all the way through. All of those watch lengths can be tagged. So those tags can then trigger a specific email campaign. So if somebody watches your 10-minute video all the way through, you can assume they're pretty interested in whatever product you're selling. So you can send them emails that are for that really warm lead. Whereas someone that clicked off after like 10 seconds, you can go, hey, what happened? Is there something I can give you that is a little more congruent with what you're interested in? So it's one of my favorite features of Kartra. You can check it out, solohour.com/Kartra, solohour.com/Kartra. And I have I want to say it's like $89 a month. I have that program. They don't give it to me for free. This is something that I'm doing because I like it. I've talked about it before they even had advertising on this show, as you guys well know. So big fan of Kartra. If you want to just sort of take the guesswork out of your out of your whole business and just worry about building good content and letting other expert people build the infrastructure, then Kartra is your jam. So as some of you know, I went to Australia a couple of years ago now to speak at a conference called, it wasn't Podfest, it was something, but we'll get that in a second. And I met this gentleman at this conference. We got on well, and then when I came down to his hood, which was Melbourne, he was nice enough to take me into his house. And what I didn't realize at the time, we didn't know each other very well, but he was going through a major health issue, which he had been doing for many years. He was with Coca-Cola for most of his corporate career, but he has a disease, I guess you could say, polycystic kidney disease. And he was trying to work a corporate job, realized at some point, and I think all of us run into something like this in our lives, that there are things that are maybe more important than just building the 401k and leveling up our corporate ladder. and it's spending time with family. It's having a little more time freedom. So he switched to, a solopreneur business. He came home, and when I came to visit him, which was like end of 2017, he was just about to move into his new house, which I got to tour. It was really cool. Right after that, things took a major turn for the worse for him, and he ended up having to get a kidney transplant. And so he was trying to find, everyone's trying to find a donor to do that. And finally, a buddy of his stepped up, a guy that was in his wedding, of all things, stepped up and said, "I got you, kid." And I want to dig into kind of like what happened at that point, because it did not exactly go as planned. He has a brand new mastermind it's a membership site, rather, called BLG Boost. And that is Build, Live, Give, which you can check him out at buildlivegive.com, which is really the mantra that he follows during the course of his career. He is my buddy, Mr. Paul Higgins. Hello, sir.
Hey, Michael. Great to be here.
I made a mistake. I was just about to say, and maybe I said it, I might have said he did the thing in corporate America, but it was really corporate Australia, if I didn't say that right.
Yeah, but look, it was working for one of the biggest American corporate companies known, so that's okay.
Well, first and foremost, how's your health? And tell me a bit about, I came to visit you in it was very late 2017, like December, I think, or first week of December 2017. You moved into your new house, and then things really went downhill from there. And tell me a little bit about kind of what happened and how it shifted your perspective.
Yeah, well, as you said in your intro, I've got polycystic kidney disease, and for most of your life, you don't even know you have it. So, I found out when I was 18. We went back through family history and realised that, most of my family had passed. It's a 50-50 at birth, if you get it. And, my mum had a major heart attack. We nearly lost her, and then they backtracked and realised that it was kidney failure that was causing this. And effectively, if you think of NFL football, that's about the size of my kidneys, because the cysts just outgrow them and then you lose function. So I knew it was always going to happen, but as you said, 2017, it was sort of getting a little. My function was about sort of 15%, and we were sort of tracking it. But come just after you left, and I'm not blaming you, of course, and those meat pies we had, but just after you left, it sort of declined. It went down to 6%, and it was time to find a donor. And in Australia, because of the donor rate so low, it's about a 6 to 7 year waiting list. And my buddy, or my mate, as we say in Australia, came to the party, and thankfully the rest is history.
So sorry about that. For those of you who have just noticed, I had the wrong microphone on. So your buddy, and talk about the most altruistic thing you can do in the world, which is to put your actual human walking around on the planet health at risk to help a fellow human. We have 2 kidneys. He gave you one of his, and it did not go well. It did not go according to plan. But you got there, you got through. And tell me a little bit about, I was just having this conversation last night with someone, which was, I personally, I think because of the amount, definitely because of the amount of loss that I've experienced with my parents, with, 3 of my 5 best friends in the world have passed away in the last few years. It's my perspective on daily life, which in some cases can come off as aloof, I'm kind of like almost sociopathic, if you will, are really just a result of me experiencing so much loss that I just don't sweat the small stuff as much anymore. And I'm just curious about Paul in 2019, looking at corporate Australia, Coca-Cola, Paul, let's say 10 years ago, and the perspective shift that might have happened between then and now.
Oh, look, it's a great point, and it's massive. I'm people listening right now that knew me back then, I apologise, because I was just that typical A-type, driven, perfectionist, workaholic, just, after a result, it was, I was basically, it was like, in Australia we've got a saying, the white line. So, you're basically a nice guy off the field, but once you get on it, you're absolutely, ruthless. And, I wasn't to that extreme, but it was definitely so intense. And I didn't realise until I left corporate just how intense I was. And then, post this whole thing. And diabetes is a condition I didn't really understand, but about 30% of kidney patients have diabetes, diabetes then causes kidney failure. And, I'm sitting in hospital and thinking, I've got a, bit of a scar, certainly from the first operation, didn't go that well, as you said. But I'm sort of sitting there, and then I look around and there's, just some people like 10 operations to remove a leg, and they know not too far down the track, their next leg's coming, and they cannot control this at all. Doctors can't control it. It's just going to happen. And you just look at that and you think, God, how lucky am I? I've had my best mate step up, give me a kidney, and now I look at it's basic, I call it the disaster scale. And, a 10 out of 10 is those guys, right?
Right.
What they go through is amazing. Whereas for me, the day-to-day problems, the stuff that I used to sweat over, like you, I just don't sweat over it anymore. And it's just like a calmness, I suppose. And sometimes it's only when, it's like when you're a parent, sometimes you can only talk to other parents in a certain way. I think it's the same thing where you talk to people that have had a major incident, like you've had several, as you said. You just have a different perspective. And for me, it's definitely been for the better.
Well, there's a friend of mine posted yesterday, which I thought was really, really interesting. She had this, it was like there's a almost an inherent belief by humans that there's a deal to be struck. Like if I live life in a certain way and I'm a good person, then bad things shouldn't happen to me. Like there's a karmic deal that we almost we believe with really no evidence. We just think if I do this, then life should be relatively good. It doesn't really work that way. There's a relentlessness to life, like there's a relentlessness to ocean waves. Like they don't really care if you're drowning. The waves are still going to hit you. That has nothing to do with what the reality of the situation is. And so sometimes life does that. Life can really be like the second you think, man, this is as bad as it can get, life goes, really? And then serves you up another steaming pile of dew. And you go, oh, I thought that it was really bad a minute ago. And so I think the conversation I had yesterday about it was, I think the more we can sort of just accept that sometimes good things happen to bad or bad things happen to good people, then you go, okay, well, then let's be grateful for every moment we have and do our best to live in a way that the people around us know that we love them and they hopefully will share the same thing and we build these relationships together. Tell me about your perspective on that as a philosophy of going through life now that you've experienced what you've experienced, which is a major health issue for the last, number of years.
Yeah, look, I think for me, it's, I suppose I'm less selfish. That's the way I sort of sum it up. It's like, I want to now just help others. So a lot of, when you've got a condition, you don't really want to talk about it. And unfortunately, sometimes you make decisions for other people by not talking about it. So I've learned to, make sure that if people want to know, it's good to tell them. So you don't have to hide everything. And for years, I hid everything. I never wanted to tell anybody about my condition. I never wanted to tell people how I was feeling because, I felt guilty. It was like, well, there's worse people than me. Why should I tell you about me? But it's all relative, right? Compared to them, it was, it wasn't great. But but most of the time was sort of inwardly thinking about me and my health in some ways. And certainly right near the end, when you've got 6% kidney function, it's like you haven't slept for 5 days, and plus you've been on the booze, on the alcohol for 5 days. Like it's not a great experience. So you sort of just have to think about yourself, because that's all you can do. But out the other side, you get a brand new kidney. You get it. It's like you're back at uni. Your brain is sharp again. You've got all of that energy, and it's like, hang on, it's time to forget about me. It's actually time to, help others, and that's, really has driven me into the community that I'm building, and it's given me a whole new release of life. But also, how do I get more people donating, especially in Australia? And in Australia, there's a rule where your family can override your decisions. So you're a donor, and you have to first pass in hospital. So it's not side of the road, which most people think. It's actually, you've got to be in ICU or emergency department, and you're equivalent to do it. And the family can say, you know what, this has been so traumatic, I'm not going to donate. So that's why there's a 6 to 7 year waiting list for kidneys, and for other organs, it's, can even be longer. And for me, I now want to focus my attention on, well, how can I improve that? So a lot of posting I do on my social media, etc., is to encourage people. Just one more person donated a kidney, and I've seen my group, it's like a mother's group, so to speak. There's 6 of you turn up to clinic every day, and just the joy on their face to know that, someone's given them, life again. And conversely, the family that have donated, and the opportunities that's given, I think is amazing. So for me personally, it's definitely got me to think less about me and more about how can I help others. And I think that's what inspires me today. Whereas, for a long time, it was unfortunately about me.
How did you manage just to keep a business going and keep your family on board during this time? And to me, I feel like there could be a death in the family, there could be a sickness, there could be a car accident, there could be something. We're all 100% going to go through major life changes while we are, trying to build our business. So is there anything you can reflect on and give advice on in terms of, how you managed with, you're still a dad, you're still a husband, you're still a business owner. How did you, and then you're also going through this, mentally traumatic, physically traumatic experience. How did you manage all of it?
Yeah, and as you said before, I built a brand new house as well. And the reason I did that was to prepare the family. So if worst happened, that they were going to be taken care of. So look, I think my wife always jokes that, even when I came out of the womb, I was delegating. So I think I'm naturally a delegator. I'm very good at letting go. And I think in, corporate Coca-Cola, you didn't get to director unless you were really good at doing that. And I always had a brilliant executive assistant. I actually had it written in my contract that I wouldn't take a job because a lot of corporate have removed that role because technology's meant to take it over. I was never a believer of that. So I was always really good at having great people, and in particular having people close to me that protected my time. So, I ran a VA business for 5 years because, I had belief in that, and I sold that off because of I couldn't travel, etc. But the same principle applied. So, huge shout out to my team listening now. Is my team were the people that made that all happen. But I'd planned that. I'd in 2011, I left with a view that I had to run a business that can be run from a hospital bed. And, I built the whole model around that. And, I was fortunate now because it's a great model to have. Being a solopreneur and being able to work from anywhere in the world at any time is brilliant. But, for me, I had to do it because I knew I was going to spend a lot of time in hospital. But if you're listening right now and you want to travel more, you want to, do things that you really love to do with your life, having the right team set up and the right technology together combined, there's never been a better time to do that. And, that's what helped me get through because, some days, I was really battling, and I'd just pick up my phone. I use an app called Voxer, which is a simple voice communication, and I'd just communicate to my team, most of them in the Philippines, and they'd just go and do it. And that was just made it so much easier for me. And, I think every business owner should have a virtual assistant or assistant of some type. Your time is so valuable. And I heard you, Michael, with Jamie Masters, who's, I'm in a mastermind with Jamie. And I think you mentioned, having a VA. I just think it's so imperative. And without that team, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
My brother just got a new job, and it's a big one. Like, he's doing some major stuff. He's at Infocom. His world is corporate technology installations. Like, so if it's like a hospital or a building, they would do all the audio video integration in the building, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so, it's 50% building and it's 50% technology kind of thing. And so we were talking about, like, he's going to be doing a ton of travel, and I'm sitting there with this other guy who's been in that industry for a long time, and my brother has as well. And I said, "Oh, you should get a VA. You're going to have so much to do. You should get a VA." And he said, they're both like, "What's a VA?" And I said, "Well, it's like a virtual assistant. You can have a full-time assistant for, maybe $500 a month or, something like that." And they said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Someone that while you're sleeping can manage and correlate all your emails and get your schedule together and book your flights and do all those things." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Wow, this concept doesn't even exist in the corporate world, and there's some white space there, man." I think that if I were running a VA company, I would be reaching out to actual real corporations and saying, "Look, you don't have to have this full-time assistant per executive, but that middle management person that doesn't have an assistant but would really benefit from one could totally hire one even on their own nickel, which I'm sure they could write off at some point, for pennies on the dollar compared to what they would be paying a full-time regular assistant." Can you imagine being at Coca-Cola or something and just having this VA? So I'm just, for the people that still have regular 9-to-5 gigs out there, consider that probably for less than $1,000 a month, you could have someone that could take care of so much of your, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, so that you could just focus on the work you're supposed to be doing and just murder it in your company. I don't know. Have you heard of that before, Paul?
Yeah, look, definitely. And because a lot of people come to me that are looking for that escape. They want to run their own business. And, I think it's different for everyone, but most people want to have a runway, right? So if you have a 12-month runway of wage, I think that's really important because, it's hard, really hard the first 12 months, especially if you don't get some help. So, I recommend them. Well, if you want to run your side hustle. So I've got a guy at the moment that works about 40, probably 50 hours a week on his core job. And then he's running his side hustle, which he's setting up a brilliant platform that I know is going to be a huge success. So we got him a VA, and he just loves it because he can sit in a meeting. He's got a thought. He can quickly, basically message her and Voxer. She goes and does it, or he goes to the toilet, leaves a quick message on the way. So all of a sudden, and LinkedIn, I think, is the most powerful way at the moment to drive B2B sales. And he's getting all this activity, and he just seems to be so prolific on LinkedIn, where actually his VA is doing a lot of that, and he's earning money to then drive his business. So look, we set it up all the time, and having run a VA business and all my corporate background, it's actually the VA is normally the easy bit, right? Because they're used to it. They're normally career VAs and they're very good. The hard thing is the business owner and just getting your head around it, because it is a really new concept. So I do a lot of training with business owners to get them ready, because the VA bit is easy. But if you look at me, I've got someone in Venezuela that works overnight for me. Their country's going through really hard times, as most of you guys know, and earning American dollars is brilliant. So I've got some great talent there who are really well educated, work for me overnight. And I've got a team of 3 in the Philippines. So I've got 4 people effectively just making my life easy. And like you said, on average, it might be, if you go direct, it's about $5 USD on average you'll probably pay. and an hour. And if you go through an agency, which I always, recommend the first time round, so it makes it easier, you might pay, $9, but I can't think of anyone in corporate America or anyone that's really running their own business that are earning less than $9 an hour. So it makes very good sense to shift work, to someone at $9 when you can go out and earn, in some cases, $100 or $500 an hour.
Yeah, indeed. Ooh, getting a little check 1 2. Check 1 2. What's up with my microphone? Hello? Okay, that's better. So what do you think, if you have to look back at your, Coca-Cola career, what skills were directly transferable to your solopreneur career?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing is really understanding the consumer, or in a lot of our cases as solopreneurs, the business owner. Now, I know it's very topical these days, ideal client profile, avatar, really understanding it. Make sure you build an audience, understand them, and then release a product. But the Coke company's been doing that for over 100 years. Like, the amount of research and data that we knew about our consumers was amazing. I had someone from Nike once, the global insights person, come and speak to us, and they just said, look, by far the Coke company are the best at this. So I think that's definitely one thing that I took. I didn't always follow it in the early days because I'm an ideas guy. So, I took a while to come around to what was natural to me in the Coke system. But I think that's definitely one. The other thing is around, efficiency. So, when you can automate something, do that. Like the Coke company, let's take, when I was a young boy, 3 years old, my dad ran a country depot. It had a manufacturing plant in there, and I'd see there was lots of people on the manufacturing line. That line doesn't exist anymore because it's all in a major city now. But B is that's all automated, so there might be one or two people where there used to be hundreds. So the Coke company were just absolutely religious about how can I automate things, and that's the same thing. And I know, Michael, you use Zapier. And, you're brilliant at this, but that can just make such a difference, because hiring people, hiring the right VA is brilliant, but hiring people can be a risk, right? Let's say it's 50-50 and we've all had bad hires in our day. If you can automate, the technology hardly ever breaks. So it's very consistent and it can help you a lot before you have to employ more people. And you can always switch off the technology, whereas people, sometimes that's a bit harder. So I'm saying A players are really important, but what you should do is wait for the right A player, and you don't have to take that risk as much because you've got automation. So I think that's the second. And I think the last one was around, building experts around the world. So the Coke company in their marketing, yes, they had marketing directors that did the strategy, but they had agencies, right? So the agencies brought most of the ideas, and then they made a decision whether it was right or not. But they got the world's best experts. I got trained for sales by some of the best people in the world. The Coke company didn't do that in-house because they knew that the best person in the world was working across multiple industries, and they could take that knowledge and bring it to the Coke company. So, for me, we've collected 400 experts around the world. So when someone comes to me and says, I need a graphic designer, I need someone to help me with my automation, I need whatever, I can say, look, here's 3 people you can trust. Because the biggest mistake I found that I left Coke, I just thought everyone was going to do a great job, right? At Coke, you had the best suppliers in the world, best experts. They did a brilliant job. Whereas I got fleeced. I lost over $100,000 in 2 situations where an expert just let me down. And now what I've done is remove that. So those 3 things are the 3 probably biggest learnings that I got from my Coke days.
Isn't that great? It's cool to be with a company too that kind of like Red Bull. They've transcended the product into a lifestyle brand. They're so much bigger than sugar water, right? And I think that's a pretty interesting and cool step for a company. Like, you'd wear a Coca-Cola t-shirt and it's so universally recognizable.
Yeah, and I used to say, we sell the sausage, the sizzle, not the sausage.
Right.
And it's and I think that's a great point. And the other one, quick one with the Coke company, was that they were always looking at, how do we add the most value? So they were never talking features. So if you walked into a client, the first question you would ask is, how much money do you want to make this year, right? As a client, like, what's your hole in your budget? And we would work out that, and then we work out, okay, how can our product contribute to that? And if you think of a solopreneur as you're going in a business owner, it's not about your product, it's about the result that they need. And I think the Coke company were brilliant at that, and they were sort of pioneers in that. I think, once again, that's sort of now trickling down a lot of corporates, and it's trickling down a lot of solopreneurs to do a similar thing. But I think the Coke company, by far, I think, is still the best system. The bit of the issue I had, or not issue, but morally, was that, sugar does cause a lot of kidney failure, and working for a company that,
right.
Sugar, didn't quite sit with me, but the learnings that I got from that company are just incredible.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit here and talk about something that, to me, has really bubbled up over the last, I would say, 6 months, and that is LinkedIn as a social platform, which to me literally has been an afterthought for the last 7 years. And then literally in the last 6 months, more people I know are focusing on LinkedIn as a real legit social platform because they have a feed like Facebook and Twitter does. I think a lot of people are pretty tired of the Facebook algorithm. I'm seeing posts from friends where they're like, I'm 6 months into cancer treatment. I'm like, how do I not know this? Like, how has none of this crossed my feed in the last 2 years that you've been going through this major thing? And your ballywick is LinkedIn. And it has been because you've been like a real B2B guy, but so you have this focus not only on B2B, but also this transition into the solopreneur world. I don't know. I'm curious about what you think about what LinkedIn's been doing over the last few months or a couple of years.
Yeah, well, look, what I love about LinkedIn is it's just taking, the relationships. So I love building relationships. It just takes that so that I can be in a hospital bed, or I can be at home, and I can have clients all over the world and building those relationships. So I think it's a brilliant platform, and I've been on it since 2009, and really, I've always had it as a key thing. But you're right, Facebook for reasons that some people agreed with, and some haven't, because some of the top guys have obviously left, not thinking that Mark has got the strategy all sorted. And all that organic is moved across to LinkedIn. And I run some brilliant groups around LinkedIn, and we've sort of perfected the model. But I'll give you a couple of examples. Someone will come in and say, look, I'm getting 200 views to my LinkedIn post, and I might be getting 3 likes. And with a certain methodology we've created, within a week, they're getting 2,000 views. And the views are important, right? Don't get me wrong, but it's a bit of a vanity metric. But what the views do is get likes and comments. So all of a sudden they might be getting 30 comments and 30 likes. And the reason that's important is because those 60 engagements give you the opportunity to reach out and say, I see that you liked my post, or I see that you commented on my post. What's your key focus at the moment? And you already know, because you can go on LinkedIn to see if they're your ideal client. So you can already better make sure that the conversion is going to be higher because they're fitting your ideal client. And the other thing is you've already added value to them, right? So that you're coming not cold. You're coming in with the view that you've done a great post, you're adding value. So all of a sudden, out of that, you might get 10 sales calls or conversations. And then that, as a rough rule of thumb, we're converting at about 25%. Now, on average for most solopreneurs, if you get 20% conversion, you're doing pretty well. So it's converting higher. And, LinkedIn, they make so much money, or Microsoft makes so much money out of LinkedIn. I cannot see that changing in the short term, right? So they're smart. They know that Facebook's turned it off. All these, solopreneurs and B2B businesses have got to go somewhere. They're going organic with LinkedIn. So a post I did last week, I got 24,000 views. I got, 152 likes, and I think it was about 50 comments. And I tell you, Michael, I cannot keep up with the leads that's generated in my business. Now, 3 or 4 months ago, I was the biggest. Every time someone said, "What's your biggest problem?" I'd say leads. I just don't have enough leads in my business.
Yeah.
My great problem at the moment is I've got so many leads I can't keep up with that. And it's not just me; it's everyone that I've implemented this strategy with. Got smiles on their faces because they've just got so many leads. And I don't think there's any other thing that can move the dial as much as that in your business in such a short period than LinkedIn.
That's kind of what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that. Do you find that there's people there that are kind of in the corporate world that are kind of like, I'd like to not be in the corporate world? Like, do you find that that's a trend, and that they need some strategy?
A lot of my posts are people in corporate. And then when I send them a comment or saying, what's your focus is, most of them are saying, hey, look, I'm looking to leave. Right. So, look, corporate's great for a lot of people, but I think, it wasn't like it was for me in the 90s or even the early 2000s. A lot of corporates these days are struggling. It's very complicated. Their profit, they're not making the profit that they used to, and therefore they're not training their people, they're not developing their people, blah, blah, blah. So that's not all companies, but look, a lot of, I think, the traditional companies that haven't been, they're so big they can't change, and they're being eaten by, more of the startups. I think that's the case. And I think a lot of people are using it for that. And you can go into Sales Navigator and see how active. So have they been active in the last 30 days? And you can really see the people that are, I think, making that change. But if you're not on LinkedIn, at the end, I'll give people an opportunity of, what do the top 1% of LinkedIn users do? And I've got something for your listeners for that. But dive into LinkedIn.
Do you have a URL for that? Can I plug it?
Yeah. So blgdownload.com.
blgdownload.com, like build, live, give, download.com is where you can grab that. That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting, man. It feels like a little bit of white space right now. Is kind of doubling down on LinkedIn. Even now, as we've been chatting, I clicked on your LinkedIn thing, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm scrolling around, and I'm seeing a lot of people. a lot of people that I didn't even realize were actively, promoting on LinkedIn are all here. They're posting videos. They're posting, all kinds of, regular newsfeed posts. They're sharing pictures and doing all the same stuff we've been doing on Facebook, and prior to that, doing on Twitter. And probably a lot of people dealing with, Instagram's now algorithm as well. I'm one of them, where the algorithm really has kicked my butt over the last couple of years, and I'm not getting any growth on Instagram, and I know others have. I think I just don't have enough great bikini shots for me to grow as much as I'd like to.
I had someone follow me the other day that actually had their plastic surgery documented on their Instagram. I'm like, wow, that's just taking it to a whole new level. Right? It's not just bad enough that you look plastic in your photos, but you're actually showing us how you got that.
Yeah. There was a girl that was our waitress in Paso Robles. I was just on this 5-day road rally, and our waitress at this restaurant was really pretty, but she had done a bunch of lip injections, and it just made her look like she got punched. And I'm like, does a good friend just tell her, you're so beautiful without this? Stop it. Stop with the lip punch.
Yeah, and tattoos. But anyway, don't.
That and what? What was the last thing?
Some tattoos, like you look at.
Oh, I thought you said titties. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. The tattoos is correct.
Sleeve tattoos,
Tattoos, the sleeve. Yeah, I'm like, what are you in the MMA? Are you a MMA fighter? I don't want to see a sleeve. I don't mind a couple of good strategic tattoos on anybody, but once you start doing a whole armful, it's just like, oh man, what a nice canvas. Here we are. We're like, get off my lawn.
Yeah. How much? But you said a really interesting word there, which was the algorithm, and effectively, if I do a post, exact same content and the exact same structure, and I don't post to trigger the algorithm, I might get 500 views. And like I said, if I actually trigger the algorithm and we've cracked a way of doing that, I'll get 24,000 views with the exact same post. So there is, it is a gold rush at the moment on LinkedIn, but there's definitely some things, if you do those, will make a significant difference to the success that you have on it. And unfortunately, a lot of LinkedIn experts are still doing this old, let's just get as many people in the door as possible. It's all about sending outgoing connection requests. And I'm sure, Michael, you get them as well. And when you went back into your LinkedIn, it's just, spam, delete. But the way that we do it is we build relationships, we build trust, and it just works beautifully. And you just got to trigger that algorithm. And then, it's like, it's like you found that stream that's got so much gold versus everyone else that's just panning in the dirt.
Can you offer any strategy around that? Can you share a little bit of insight? I know you have the download. Which
look, the key thing is,
appeals you download.
Yeah, you've got to get a certain amount of likes in a certain time frame to trigger the algorithm.
Okay.
So that's one piece. And, the short to that is you got to do it collectively because you can't do it by yourself. So, LinkedIn, it's not, they don't love it, but they love the result that it builds. So I won't go into more detail here on that, but, that's one thing. And the other thing is hashtags. So no different to Instagram and other platforms. If you go into the search component in LinkedIn and you go hashtag sales or hashtag marketing, you'll see that there's, 5 or 8 million followers. You want to make sure that you've got 5 to 9 hashtags at the bottom that when it boosts into those communities as well. So, they're definitely two things that will help get more engagement to your post, which ultimately leads to more leads and more cash in your business.
Are there any types of posts that seem to do better? At
the moment, I think it's still text and a great photo.
Okay.
And with the key thing is you're writing a newspaper headline, right? Because you got to think 60% of users are on mobile. So, they've got 2 minutes on a post, right? If you're lucky, if you're one of the lucky ones. So you've got to have an intriguing statement at the top that gets them to click on see more. So one is the photo will help with that. And there's some great platforms you can get some free photos out there that are great. And then the other one is that statement at the top. So, that's really important. And the other thing is always ask for a comment. So LinkedIn rewards comments more than likes. So if you can always ask a question, a really good question, and get people to comment on it, that will also boost your engagement or your reach on posts.
So really no different than what we did on Facebook years ago.
Correct.
Same kind of thing. It's the same deal.
Yeah.
And so I have a social media technique that's worked for me for many years. I call it the When Harry Met Sally technique. There's a movie, if people haven't seen it, starring Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. It's called When Harry Met Sally. There's a very famous scene in that movie where Billy Crystal says to Meg Ryan, he says, well, I can always tell when a woman fakes it. And then she gives this Academy Award winning performance. And at the end of the, this scene, and she's banging on the desk. She's like, yes, yeah, right. And then a waitress walks up to a lady and she says, what can I get you? And the woman says, I'll have what she's having. That concept, I'll have what she's having. If you have that in the back of your mind every time you do any social media post, especially when you have something to sell, what it means is instead of saying, here's how great my product is, instead, the strategy behind the post should be, this is how great my life is as I'm using this product. You want people to see how great it is when you're experiencing the product that you're trying to sell. So if you're trying to sell solopreneurship, like in my case, if you look at the narrative of most of my posts, I'm doing a hike. I'm playing racquetball in the middle of the day. I'm on a 5-day Porsche road rally. I'm playing drums. I'm doing all the things I love because I have the time freedom to do it, which means that hopefully someone looks and says, why is he able to do that on a Wednesday? What does he do? What's the deal? And they go, oh, he is, building this brand around time freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, I want to listen to what he has to say because apparently it's working pretty well. And I think that's the same thing that Build, Live, Give does, right? It's the same general idea. Right? Am I wrong on that? Or are you?
No, you're
am I
spot
speaking
on.
the language of your people?
Spot on. And look, I think in corporate, I still have a daily reflection. I read every day, which is, what's most important to me in life, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd read that and then I'd go into corporate and behave differently. Whereas now I read it and I'm just living that. And I say to everyone, start with the lifestyle you want and then build the business to fund that.
Right. Go backwards from there.
Correct. Go backwards from there. And when I woke up and, in the emergency department, they basically said, look, Paul, we just got you. You're about a minute from passing. And, I felt the levitation stuff or whatever, whether it was true or not, they said it just could have been the drugs. But I woke up and the first time in my life, I said, you know what? I don't want to change a thing. Like the life I've got is exactly the life I want. And, I think that is available today better than anything. And your show is a brilliant way of demonstrating that. And if you're listening thinking, I haven't got the right idea or I'm just waiting into the right opportunity, as you know, Michael, that won't happen. But if you're smart and you get some help from people like yourself, I know you run some great coaching and mentoring. I do a similar thing. If you get some help and make that transition, like you said, you can be at a Porsche event. For me, I can be there, with my kids. I can, if they call me, I can pick them up at any time. I've got to go to hospital appointments all the time at the moment. Still, I can just go and do them. I don't have to worry about asking someone, can I go, or organising leave or anything like that. The freedom is amazing, and there is a great path to get there. And I won't have it out by Monday, but I've just finished my book, which sort of goes in to this story. But it is a great lifestyle, and I just want to shout out to you for being one of the early pioneers in actually pushing this whole solopreneur movement. And, I was inspired by your initial podcast. It was great to meet you, have you at my house, but it's something now that I'm just so passionate about, and it's that giving part that I'm doing now. So give back to others to not make the mistakes I did in the first place.
Well, isn't it something else that you were able to, and again, they say to look for a silver lining. What a lucky mindset you had. You're at the brink of inexistence, and you came back and said, I'm good. I don't need to change a lot because I've been building this for the last few years. What a fortunate, and I don't want to say lucky because it's not luck. You did it. You made that happen. You built that life. I've mentioned this before on the show, but for those of you who are new, I was having a conversation with someone last October, and I was trying to describe, just as a human being walking around on the planet, what are the things that elevate me the most? What makes me the happiest, the smartest, the sexiest, the funniest, whatever version I was feeling at that time. But what am I doing? What are the activities and who's around me for those moments? And I said, it's when I'm playing my drums. It's when I'm on a great deep dive podcast, having a great conversation like this one. It's when I have a new friend, male or female. We get 2 bottles of wine and we sit down for about 5 hours and we just dig, which is amazing. And for some reason, it's 2 bottles of wine that really does it. One isn't quite enough. Or it's when which I also experienced near you, when I step off a train in a foreign country for the first time and I go, okay, what does this one do? Like, those things all elevate me so much. And as I'm describing this to this person, I realized, wait a second, I've just described my life. I don't know if I meant to do this, but maybe I did, because it's decisions I made over the last 5-6 years of doing this show that I make sure to include all of those things on a regular basis. And now when I step back from it, I go, holy crap, look at this. This is crazy that this is what I get to do. And sometimes people say that to me. Oh, you're so lucky that you get to do this. And I go, oh, thanks. It's nice. But when I look back on it, I go, I don't think there's any luck involved at all. I feel like this is a thing that was very intentional and very, very intentional. This is a thing that I built. Do you feel the same way about your life, and
Yeah.
whether it was informed by? I think in your case maybe it was informed by your health and family, but you made this, didn't you?
Yeah, and look, I think I was always moving that way. Like I was always going to go out and run my own business. But my health, 2011, when the nephrologist, the kidney specialist looked at me and said, hey, look, roughly you got 2 years left on this kidney if you keep flying around the world, working the hours you are, blah, blah, blah. Basically corporate. She said, corporate equals 2 years for you. And I said, well, what's the alternative? And she goes, well, it's pretty obvious. You basically give up corporate and start your life again to protect it. And that's what I did. And I got 9 years, so 9 years was amazing. And why it's important is because a kidney transplant could last 3 weeks, it could last 20 years. You just don't know. And if you're on dialysis, which I was, that, roughly 10 years. So my mum's really sick at the moment. She's been on for 10 years. It's hard to live a long life on dialysis. So for me, it was really important to make those changes. But you're right, I worked really hard to make those changes, and I sacrificed my career. Like walking into a room when you were director at Coca-Cola, you never wanted to tell people what you did because, everyone wanted a job or knew someone or blah, blah, blah. Now, back then in 2011, I walked in a room, I didn't even know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I was meant to be a business coach. I didn't even know what that meant. I was a nobody, and people just treated me as a nobody. And I'm not into ego or status, but it really strips away your identity. Then, when I couldn't ride anymore, that stripped away something that I loved. So there was a lot of changes I went through, but it's all been definitely for the better for me. And when that doctor looked at me in the eye and said, hey, if you weren't as fit as you are now, there's no way you would have pulled through that operation. And to me, that was not luck. That was because I left corporate, I did all the right things, gave up alcohol, started eating the right food, and really took care of myself whilst I was doing something I loved. That's what made the difference for me.
So no 2 bottles of wine for us. We'll have to make sure we don't do that.
Yeah, correct.
In your case.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll
So don't listen to me.
Kombucha with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, isn't that something that the bummer about a lot of this, about what we're talking about, is that a lot of these lessons don't find us until it's so late in our life. We're lucky. That part we're lucky that you and I have gone through some shit and we have this perspective now. We got plenty of time. There's still plenty of time on the clock, as far as we know, statistically, that we get to at least have this idea. And it's not easy. What we're suggesting isn't easy in general. It's not easy just to, you went to school for however many years, you're doing a job, you're making, you're making X amount of money, you have family, you have kids, you have all the things. It's not easy to, just kind of bail on that, but sometimes life gets in the way and you've got to figure out how to navigate around that. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And look, when I left, a lot of my mates thought I was absolutely crazy. And banks, certainly in this country, banks don't want to look at you. If you run your own business and there's ways that you run expenses or whatever, it's hard to prove. So even getting that home loan was really difficult for us for the new house, being my own business. So there's definitely some downsides. But the guys that sort of looked at me thought were crazy, they're the guys reaching out to me now saying, hey, I know I'm in the barrel to get a redundancy soon. I don't know where it's going to be, or, there's further cutbacks, or I've got to go and actually make, 500 people redundant. I just don't want to do this anymore. Tell me more about your life. Tell me what you do, because it seems as if you're loving it. And yes, the financials, if it took me 5 years too long to get the financials right. I'll be first to admit that. But now, I've got a model that really works. And as we talked about before, LinkedIn is certainly part of that. But, it's pretty good. And when people say to you, success is different to everyone. But when someone says to me now, what's your greatest achievement in life? It's pretty easy for me to say now, I'm a great dad. Pre-2011, I was the flyby dad. Like if my kids sat in the kitchen and 4 of us, my wife and my 2 kids, and there was a difficult question to ask, they weren't asking me. They were asking my wife. Whereas now it's probably 50-50. But, that has been my greatest achievement, and family is most important to me. And, I don't have to go to bed, thinking, God, I need to do more of that. I'm just living it. I'm doing it. So if you're listening now and, whether it's, drinking 2 bottles of wine, whether it's traveling, whether it's drums, whatever it is for you, there is never a better time to do it than right now. And, just make that step and get the support, whether it's through Michael, other people. There's great people now that will support you through it. And it is a great time to live the life you really deserve.
Agreed. Tell me about BLG Boost and why you created it, and what. By the way, BLG to me, I think we talked about this when I was there. Boulder Lunch Group. That was a thing I was in. Is Boulder Lunch Group. It was a little thing for solopreneurs when I lived in Boulder, and we would all get together and have lunch together and do the thing. Tell me about what BLG Boost is.
Yeah, so effectively, I like the highway, right? So if you want to get to success, so whatever that is, and we've talked a lot about what life and success means, you want to get there, as quick as possible. And, that's sitting at the speed limit. I don't know, what's the speed limit in your state? I know that you probably never drive it in your Porsche, but what's the speed limit?
65 is normal, 65 miles an hour. So that would be 100 and something for you? Yeah. So just over 100, which ours is 100 kilometres. Yeah.
So, if you sit at 100, you're going to get there a lot quicker, right? But what I found is you take a lot of detours. And some of those detours are side roads. Some you go backwards, and some it's a dead end and you just don't know what to do. And I did those for 5 years. And, BLG Boost is just helping people avoid those side tours, right? It's just keeping you on the highway to get to where you want to be quicker, whatever success is for you. And I do it really through 3 ways. So one is through direct coaching. Like I could tell you, here's the way that I've got all my experience and knowledge over 26 years. You can go and do that, or you can just ask me a question and I'll answer it, right? And if I don't have the answer, I'll go and find it. So that's one. The other is getting more leads, which is what most solopreneurs need. And as I said, we've really cracked the code in LinkedIn. So that's a great way of doing it. And the third thing is access to those experts, because I don't want you to drop 100K, which could have funded your travel, could have funded your holiday, could have funded a holiday house that you're giving to some person that's basically, has got different morals and ethics to what you have. So they're the 3 key things. Plus, it's a community of people that basically are all got similar values, which is that build, live, give. Build a great business to live a great life, because that's your business is just funding your life, and then to give back in some way. So, that's why I created BLG Boost, and I just couldn't see anything like that out in the marketplace. So, I struggled to find it, so I basically created it myself.
How do you connect with the people in the group? Like, what are the monthly or weekly, or how do you guys connect together?
Yeah, so we have a Slack group. So basically, a lot of the communications in the Slack group. And like I said, they can just ask me a question. I'll basically get straight back to them. I post knowledge in there as well every day, and there's other people asking questions. So that's most of our interactions. And then for the members, they get a call with me once a month. So, and if I know someone's really struggling, I'm always going to give someone a call, right? So it's not black and white. So that's in Boost. And then I've also got a group mentoring session, which is, we do it in groups of 8. And that's where it is a fortnightly call, and that's where we go through a format. So, a lot of people call it a mastermind. I'm in a mastermind, but I think they're normally peer-based masterminds, not paying. This one's more group mentoring, where I'm actually facilitating it, but using the experience of the team. So that one's a little more involved. But they're the 2 ways that we work, and it seems to be working really well. And then we've got another group that triggers that algorithm in LinkedIn. But all that combined is, getting people to basically have more smiles like you and I do, Michael.
Do you, when you're on these calls, do you have an agenda? Like, so if it's Wednesday, do you have an agenda, or do you listen to everyone's week and then sort of answer from there?
Yeah, so we've got a standard agenda where we go through, you talk about your biggest win in the fortnight, and you talk about your key learning. So that's what we do, and we go around the ground, so to speak, so everyone does that. And then we've all got a a 90-day plan, or every member's got a 90-day plan, and they just bring up their biggest challenge at the moment based on their 90-day plan. And we've got a methodology of 5 key drivers to growth. So they have an action against each of those 5. So let's say they got 5 key things they're focusing on in the 90 days. They've got to just bring up a challenge on one of those. And then that challenge, everyone shares experiences, not opinions, but experiences to help solve that. And then I'll step in as the mentor at the end to say, look, what are you going to do? What's the one thing you can do, given everyone's experiences, that will hold you accountable to the next call? So that's the format. And then what I do outside of that call is do very specific minutes. So instead of someone going and trying to find all the knowledge, when they mention something, I take note of it, and then I'll just, in the minutes, we'll put a direct link to that, or put a direct link to, I listen to about 2 hours of podcasts a day at 2.5 times speed. So,
really?
I just,
bunch of chipmunks.
Yeah, correct. Correct. And some people, I've got to slow down a little, but might go to 2. But yeah, it's, I'm constantly collecting that knowledge, and then I'm fitting it to the right situation rather than saying, because, like I said, it takes so much time to go and collect my knowledge. So why don't you just go and access it straight away?
Right. And so when you talk about the 5 key drivers, is that a framework that people get when they join the group? Like they have they have something to follow?
Yeah, and it's just back engineering what I should have done, right?
Right.
And what I've tested now to work with others. But quickly, number 1 is personal productivity, or personal effectiveness, I should say. So your time's the most important thing. So how do you leverage that? Second is ideal client, which goes back to my Coke learnings that I mentioned before. Then the business model, because what you want to do is, it's no good providing people the right solution if it's not funding your lifestyle. So you got to make sure your business model's right. So that's got, your firstly, what's non-negotiable, what you won't do, and then pricing's probably the big one there, and then sales focus, because it is all about driving traffic to your business and then converting that. So that's 4. And finally, once you've got all that momentum, you want to work 30, 40 hours. You don't want to work 70. So how do you build your team of remote experts? I call it your high-performing team, to then support you. So they're the 5.
Yeah, and it doesn't change much. Depending, it doesn't really matter what your business is. It's just a thing, It's pretty generalized the whole way. So I think it probably works. So anyway, blgboost.com, and then we also have blgdownload.com, right, for the LinkedIn strategy. Yeah.
So I'll give you the key, the best learnings we've had, and like I said, if some of our members are getting 70,000 views and converting lots of leads, so there's definitely some things we're doing right, and we'd love to share that with other solopreneurs. So, you can live that life that you want quicker, and you can stay at 100 or 65 mile an hour rather than do the U-turns or the side turns a lot of us have done in the past.
I love it. Paul, as I like to say, it's been a little slice of heaven. You've done everything we've asked. You've showed up. You've dropped all of those knowledge bombs, and and now it's almost time for you, the rest of the world in Australia, to get up.
Yeah, and it's off to clinic for me. It's my fortnightly blood tests and hopefully thumbs up. So that's what I'm just about to do now. Jump in the car and go over there. Well,
fingers crossed for that, ladies and gentlemen. Please thank Mr. Paul Higgins. Find him on LinkedIn, actually. Paul Higgins 555 is his LinkedIn address. Or you can probably just type Paul Higgins. He'll probably be the one in Australia. BLGBoost.com. That's Build, Live, Give, Boost.com, BLG. And, of course, BLGDownload.com for your LinkedIn strategy. Paul, thanks, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, no, look, as I said, you inspired me when I first listened to this, actually, when I was in my early days. And, it's just so great to come on your show and just continue to do the great things you're doing. I love your work, and I love what you are as a person. So thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, brother. Folks, you've now just listened to another episode of the Solopreneur Hour in your earballs. As always, if you can, pop on over to iTunes. Actually, I guess it's Apple Podcast Store. And leave a rating and review if you could. Follow us on Instagram at Solo Hour if you want to see my shenanigans. And until then, go have yourself a wonderful day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Solopreneur Hour podcast. Connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/solohour, on Twitter at solohour, and of course at solohour.com.
Michael, you're so naughty.